CLS Talks.
Talk to me.
CLS Talks.
Talk to me.
CLS Talks.
Talk to me.
CLS
Talk to
Talks.
me.
Real information.
Talk to me.
Real education.
Talk to me. Talk to me. They don't talk to me. They look like that morning. They don't talk to me. That morning. They don't talk to me. That morning. They don't talk to me. That morning.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the CLS Talks. I'm Lionel Coveney and Carty is with me as always, and it's going to be a very interesting discussion today because for the first time, we're tackling a live issue. And what I mean by a live issue is a letter was received by somebody who came to the CLS very recently, Mary in Carlow, we'll call her, it's not her real name, and she was quite concerned about the letter that she received. So tell us, Des, because you're dealing firsthand with this case, what is the letter all about? It was quite a scary one too, wasn't it?
Absolutely, but most of these letters are scary when people get them first. It was in relation to an alleged parking offence, or words to that effect. And Mary received this, it was only a few days ago, and she's already drafted up a response and sent it into the Carlow Council. And it's alleging that she parked on a certain street in Carlow, and it obviously has the registration number of the alleged vehicle, so on and so forth, at a certain time, so on and so forth. It's pretty brief, but it alludes to fines being imposed. It alludes to an offence that was allegedly carried out by Mary, we'll call her, as you've called her.
Yep.
And that's basically it in summary. And obviously then if you don't pay the fine fee stroke within a period of days, I think it's 28 days, and if you don't pay the €40, it's alluding to within the 28 days, then it doubles or trebles or quadruples. No, it goes up to €60 actually within 28 days, and then it can go up further again. And if it's not paid beyond that, then you could end up in court facing a judge or a registrar, whatever it might be. And then obviously you'd have court fines and fees and all the rest of it. And potentially, again, this is a criminal offence. Again, people, for the clarity of the listeners, all of the anything traffic related, road related, it all comes under criminal offences.
And that's a point certainly worth noting, because I remember when I first heard that, I was A, aghast, and B, disbelieving then. I was real doubting Thomas of how can that be criminal? I can't be branded a criminal just for parking on a double yellow line or something, but that is the case.
Yeah. For my information, I learned this years and years and years ago. I did a small course in the UK in law, nothing too elaborate, but that was shocking. The lecturer came out and said, you do realise, everybody in the class, and nobody did, we all just assumed incorrectly that anything traffic related was not a criminal offence, but the lecturer clarified that it was, and we were shocked at the time, and most people we educate this about are still shocked that it is, that it could be. But potentially, if you think about it, if this gets pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, you could potentially end up with a criminal record. And if you look at the Road Traffic Act, in most cases you could end up with a record, you could end up with a heavy fine, and you could end up possibly in prison as well.
It's incredible when you think about it, and we've spoken quite a lot on this show about fear and how there's so much fear-based conditioning out there, and this, what on the surface seems like a routine letter, really does tap into that level of consciousness and that fear, because the vast majority of people, and most people, are touched by this kind of letter at some point. The initial reaction or the gut instinct is, right, well, I'm afraid of this, how can I make it go away as quickly as possible? I'll pay the fine.
Lionel, I'll read verbatim what it states here on the letter, because what we'd like to do, I suppose, is disseminate what's on the letter, possibly, I suppose, educate people in what to look at in the letter, how to take it apart, perhaps suggest what research they could do on foot of what's in the letter and ways to approach it. Then perhaps we could get into a letter that we drafted up with Mary, and we'll analyse it through using that as well.
Perfect. So let's go into the letter then that Mary received.
Okay, at the top it says Carlow County Council, and it does the Irish version of everything as well on the notice. It says, this is a notice. It says notice under section 3. insertion by Section 12(1) of the Road Traffic Act. So one of the key words there now is the Road Traffic Act. So if people are looking at these things, you need to get the Road Traffic Act, specifically 2002, look under Section 3 and see what it says there. So we've done that, but it doesn't really help us at the moment. We're not going to start getting into the depths of that yet, because there's other issues with this letter that we could use.
Yeah.
So continuing on from that, it says also by Section 15 under the Road Traffic Act of the Local Authorities Traffic Wardens Act. So the Traffic Wardens Act 1975. So that will allude to the limitations of what traffic wardens can or cannot do. Very important. So again, laterally we can get into that, but perhaps we don't need to, I suppose, push on that until later in the process. So it says fixed charge offence. So it doesn't say fixed charge alleged offence, it says fixed charge offence.
Right.
So obviously it has the woman's name, it has a reference number, an address. Then it goes into the alleged offence or alleged offence. It is alleged that you have committed the following offence involving the use of a mechanically propelled vehicle or vehicle as some guards would say. So I'll reiterate that, restate it. It is alleged that you have committed the following offence involving the use of a mechanically propelled vehicle bearing identification mark blah 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 in a public place at a certain street at a certain time on the 29th of August 2015. So as I say, it's very, very recent, very relevant.
Yeah.
Now it goes into the rest of it. Then it says payment of fixed charge. So it tells you then how you can pay this fixed charge.
Right.
It doesn't say here, basically, this is an allegation and we will have to prove the allegation before we can impose this fixed charge stroke fine stroke fee.
So it's coming from a position you're going to pay this.
Correct,
Yeah.
absolutely. From the outset, it doesn't inform you that you have the lawful right or legal right to bring this or have this brought to court, for them to have to, they have to convict you of this,
Yeah.
for them to apply this fine or charge in a lawful manner, as we've discussed before on other programs. So we won't get into the nuances of what it says, but all it goes into really in summary is the amount, the increments in which it'll increase, where you can pay the money and how you can pay the money.
Okay, so it's a nice, easy letter for them. We want money from you. Here's how you can pay us the money, and we're not going to let you know that you don't actually have to pay the money if you want to challenge it.
Correct, absolutely.
Okay.
Now, we'll reiterate some of the key points for the listeners again, because I think sometimes it's good to say these things maybe 2 or 3 times. People can jot them down. So at the very head of the letter, the note, it's a notice. So they're giving you information. They're saying, know this, notice.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the Road Traffic Act 2002 and the Traffic Wardens Act 1975. So people can start Googling that and having a look at it. Again, they use the term alleged offence, so they have not convicted anyone. And a key phrase in there that I'd be keen to analyse and disseminate is the term mechanically propelled vehicle.
What is a mechanically propelled vehicle? We don't go around every day using that term in common parlance, but it's been used for a specific reason, I would imagine. I would also imagine that that is pertaining to what is contained within the Road Traffic Act. So maybe you can shed some light on that for us, Des.
Well, not to get too deep into it, we've discussed this, I think, on other shows, but just in summary, well, I'd suggest that the listeners go and actually analyse the terms themselves. Well, in summary, to me, a mechanically propelled vehicle has certain definitions under the Road Traffic Act. Now, one of the key definitions for me, I think it lays out maybe 3, 4 or 5 parts of it, and it has to be compliant under those 4 or 5 parts with all of the parts. It's not just one part, so it has to fall in under the definition in those 5 sections.
Okay.
And one of the key sections is that it is the mechanically propelled vehicle is constructed or made to carry passengers.
Okay.
Okay, passengers is the key word. We've discussed this before.
Yep.
What is a passenger?
And there is a legal definition of a passenger. It's not necessarily what, again, in common parlance, we might assume.
Yeah, it's, as you well know yourself, Lionel, and we've also researched it, a passenger is somebody that is fee paying in legal terms. So therefore, they have to be able to prove, demonstrate that the mechanically propelled vehicle, or this vehicle or property, whatever it might be, is constructed for the carriage of passengers who are fee paying.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's potentially a big point there.
Correct. Now, it's not something that you necessarily need to make a big issue of straight away. It may be something that you can leave on the burner in the medium to long term and then bring it up at a later time. But what we've decided to do is try and build in some of this material into, or weave it in to the address we would give the council, and we did with Mary.
Yeah.
And I think we alluded to it. If not, we have plans to allude to it or talk about it. But I think certainly from memory, we'll have a look at the letter.
Yeah.
And I think we have included something, in relation to that. So will we hit off with looking at the letter?
Yeah, I think so. And just to clarify for anybody who may not be fully aware of what it is we're doing now, we're going to respond to that letter, and we're going to progress then on this show over the coming weeks or months or whatever it takes with this case as a live case, to see how it progresses and see how we handle whatever correspondence may or may not come back to us.
Correct, yeah.
So, yeah, this is our first letter then.
Our view, I suppose, would be that we would be aiming for this to go away, because the woman is quite concerned. Obviously, we have to have a sort of target of where we want to end up with this. That would be the ultimate outcome, that they would back off, they'd leave this alone, they'd desist from continuing with it, they'd desist from harassing the woman. And possibly then, now as a bonus maybe, we could seek that they compensate the woman for her time, her energy, her cost, associated costs, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And that could be a bonus. Now, we wouldn't be guaranteed upon it. There may be something else more we'd have to do beyond the remit of what we're planning to do here. But to start with, we'd be aiming to basically get the council to back off, drop the case if you like, and then possibly laterally get some form of compensation for the lady or cost.
Okay.
That'd be fair enough. It's a good old target, that, isn't it?
Well, I think so, and I think why not? If they're targeting us, why don't we target them back?
If you think about it, right, not only is this lady now involved, but you're involved, I'm involved, the listeners are involved. There's a lot of time involved in this.
A huge amount of time, yeah.
And energy and cost to all the parties involved. So what we'll start off with here is we've constructed a letter with Mary, and we've headed the letter Notice Stroke Demand. So that means essentially that we're giving the council some information, as in notice, and that we're demanding that they address the letter we have enclosed, as in some of the questions we put to them, and that they provide us with certain proofs of this allegation. And it's termed Notice Demand Letter 1. Obviously at the top there on the right hand side we have the woman's name, the respective address. Obviously then we've dated the letter. The letter was dated Monday the 7th of September, so it's relatively recent, it's only a few days. And then we've also noted on the letter that it's sent via email, because obviously if you start posting stuff it's going to cost you money.
Yeah.
So we would have sent it, or Mary would have sent it as an attached email.
And we've mentioned that in the past. That is the equivalent of registered post, provided you save your document as a PDF and attach it, as opposed to putting it in the body of the email. Well, that's perfectly acceptable and is considered served.
Correct. And just as a point of note there, Mary has another friend called Mary, who sent the email for her and on her behalf.
Okay.
So Mary is not directly involved in this in terms of registering anything. She's got somebody else, if you like, if you want to call it a third party, that she has agreed would send the stuff for her.
Yeah. So
she's sort of detached from it in that way. So her friend Mary has sent an email to the council, and again at the top here, well, I want to fill the listeners in another little bit of research we did already. We did call the council, and we asked them certain questions in relation to the qualifications of their said traffic wardens.
Yeah.
Now, we won't get into the detail of that too much, but we did find out some information which, as we read through the letter, we'll allude to it. So we did actually do our research on this without sort of getting too much into the depth of the law itself. We just wanted to find out some basic stuff. So we start off with the letter. It says, your letter, the 3rd of the 9th, 2015, your notice number, blah, blah, blah. So we're making a reference here to the council's letter and the council's reference number. We're not saying our reference number, we're saying your reference number. So it's the council's reference number.
Yeah.
It's addressed to Dear Bridget and Kieran. These are two characters within the council. We have just caught sight of your letter stroke notice referenced herein, not forgetting that this letter they sent was a notice. We're disseminating this in quite a bit of detail, but it's worth noting that we have said we have just caught sight of your letter. So if you're late in responding to certain things, if you state to them, we have just caught sight, then you're saying, well, we have just caught sight. We have just received your letter and we're only addressing it now. So if anybody's worried about time in terms of you've got 7 days for this or 21 for that, don't worry too much. When you get to address the letter, then you can put, we have just caught sight, which it lets you off the hook, so to speak, because you've just caught sight of the letter.
And that's a little trick that solicitors use all the time as well.
Correct, absolutely. They can hold on to things for weeks and weeks and then say, we have just caught sight. Now again, the letter, the initial notice that the council sent wasn't registered.
Okay.
So the post could have been delayed.
Sure.
Okay. The next line here is, are we to presume that you or ye have erred in with your said alleged offence? Up front we're saying there could be a potential error on the council's part here, which kind of lets them off the hook a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. But you want to be able to do that, give them a door they can go through.
Well, the ultimate aim here is to make this go away. So if you want to make it easy for them to make it go away, there's the option there.
That's the door there for them. And or your administrative processes are somehow flawed. So you're suggesting that what they've done may be incorrect, flawed, they may have made an error. In relation to your said allegations, or perhaps both, or is this just an elaborate scam of sorts? Okay, so you're saying, well, there's a door for you, but if you want to go down the route now of pursuing this, we're going to take it that it's a potential elaborate scam.
So you're kind of alluding to the seriousness potentially if they decide to really press this home, and that you are aware of that and you'll continue then on that course.
Now that statement, if you like, is framed as a letter. So we've said, or is this just an elaborate scam of sorts? So we're not saying it is a scam. We're just saying there's a question and we have in our head, and you can put down what you want in your head, providing you put it down potentially as a question.
And a question is never an allegation, and there's a big difference. So you can ask whatever question you like and you don't implicate yourself in any way.
Now the next part is, we've broken this up like it is an affidavit. So we've got the main points, which is points 1, 2 and 3. And we started off like this. So all the points 1, 2 and 3 at the beginning state for and on the record. So what we're saying here is that if necessary, we're going to use this letter as part of our court proceedings if it comes to that, if it's necessary. So the opening sentence here is, for and on the record, you did state. So now we're going to paraphrase word for word, or quote word for word, what the council has said in their letter.
Okay.
We're not going to use our words. We're not going to interpret what they have said. So you did state, this is what the council did state. It is alleged that you have committed the following offence involving the use of a mechanically propelled vehicle bearing the identification mark blah 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 in a public place at a certain street at a certain time on the 29th of August 2015. So that's fine, that's their statement, and we've said that statement probably 2 or 3 times now, so the listeners should be fairly clued into that. The first question we've asked here, and again we put this as a form of question, it isn't a statement. We're going to continually ask questions, because if you start making statements, you're giving evidence against yourself. It's that simple. So you do not give statements, you don't make statements and give evidence against yourself. The first question is, whom are you specifically alleging has committed the said alleged following offence?
Okay, fairly straightforward.
So we want to know who they are specifically saying has committed alleged offence. Does that make sense?
Complete sense, yeah.
Very straightforward. Very simple question. What first-hand knowledge do you have in relation to same? So who was there? Like, do you have, the reader we're talking to here, Bridget and Kieran, do you have first-hand knowledge? Were you there? Were you there at this time this alleged offence took place? Very simple question, nothing too complicated. What specifically is a mechanically propelled vehicle?
The CLS Talks.